Champions Cup, round one, the Saturday games, of which there were six. A bit of a mixed bag in terms of some games which were very close right up until the death, and then others which kind of tended to be a bit blown out. But yeah, as always, you guys can let me know your thoughts on the games. To be fair, especially the first four, because I watched these two games at the same time, although in full and live. The other four, I've seen about 15 minutes of highlights for each, so kind of the key moments. So anything I missed in these ones, please do let me know. And if I got time, I'll go back and watch some of these ones in full. But I was actually up at 4 o'clock. One of my kids woke me up, and these two games started at 4, so I was tempted just to get up and watch, but my bed was calling, and I returned to it. Anyway, the first game, which again I've only seen the highlights of, Bath against Ulster. Boy, that was a close one. Ulster getting the job done, 17 points to 16. Important away win, you'd have to say, because that pool looks like it could be pretty tight, and away wins are basically gold. So the fact that they can sneak away with a 1 point away win will be very welcome to Ulster fans. Puts Bath in a bit of a tricky spot, kind of making the next game a wee bit of a must win, but it's only one game in, so nobody's dead and buried after one game. Ulster had 2 tries, one to Cooney, one to Little. They had 2 conversions and a penalty. For Bath, it was the 1 try to Hammer Webb, plus a conversion and 3 penalties. The tries were pretty class. Like Cooney's one on 13 minutes was, again, I've only seen the highlights, but seemingly kind of against the run of play. Great crowd by the looks of things from what I've seen of the highlights. But yeah, box kick that kind of got deflected. Cooney's the guy who grabs it, runs half the field, and goes in to make it 7-0. Penalties exchanged. Well, at least Bath got 2 of them to make it 7-6, to make it within a point. And actually Ulster missed a penalty right before half time, which seemed like a bit of a sitter, but it was 7-6 at the break. Yeah, they got their second try at Ulster through Little on 58 minutes. They did check that there was no kind of forward pass in the build-up. It looks like there was a pass that got thrown to ground basically, and then kind of from that resulting bounce went forward, but the pass itself seemed to go backwards. So the try was a little kick through from Addison that made it 14 points to 6. Then though, kind of immediately in reply, probably the try of the game, to be fair, even if it's in a losing effort. This guy Hammer Webb, who I haven't seen before, he gets the ball out wide and he looks like he kind of has to be covered. There's not really enough space for him to go in, but man, he just puts the hammer down and beats his man. So fantastic try. Real gas, made it a point in it. And Bath did actually take the lead right before full time. 15 minutes before full time, 16-14 with a penalty. But Cooney got one back on about 70 minutes, and that was the way the scoring finished. So Bath did have a chance at the end. They went about 10 phases, but ended up knocking the ball on. I think it was a bit of Stockdale magic. Was it a knock on or was it into touch? Either way, Stockdale, who the commentator said had been quiet, put in a big effort at the end to close the game out. So from what I've seen, it looks like both sides blew a fair few chances. Ulster's hands especially seem to be letting them down at times. Bath had more possession, more territory. Both sides tackled in the mid-80s in terms of percentage, but Ulster had to make more with 149, Bath 122. Individuals, Rocketaguni had 117 run meters, 8 defenders beaten and 4 offloads, so a top shift from him in a losing effort. Marcel Kutsia was a top tackler with 16 out of 17. Kind of standard stuff from him. But yeah, it makes it tough, like I said, for Bath going forward, but still not dead and buried. And Ulster absolutely take that win all the way to the bank. So, I mean, losing bonus point for Bath, so if there's one consolation, it is that they go on to play Harlequins away, whereas Ulster have got a tough job in hosting Clermont, who got a pretty big win in their own right. But we will see how things go. The next one which was Glasgow up against Sale. And again, I haven't seen this one apart from the highlights. Low scoring affair. The highlights kind of jumped. One of the shorter highlights packages, I guess. You guys can let me know if that's fair. But it started kind of with Glasgow trying to take a shot at a drop goal anyway, because it seemed like they were building loads of phases, couldn't quite break that Sale line. And Hastings missed the drop goal attempt. 15 minutes though, they did manage to go ahead with a penalty. They missed another one on 24 minutes, but made up for it on 26. Seems like Sale were giving away a fair few penalties early on. So it was 6-0 after 2 penalties to Adam Hastings. It was a high tackle on himself for that one on 26 minutes. And then DTH van der Merwe got quite the try. There was only 2 tries in the game. They were both pretty impressive in their own right. But it was like Sam Johnson with a kind of spin pass to DTH, who just powered through a gap. And it was a very, very good try. So if you are going to only get 2 tries, you want them to be nice ones. That one was pretty good. 13-0 at half-time, but 61 minutes, Connor Oosthuizen, he goes in for a try. And he is known, at least from watching him in Super Rugby, he's known for being one of those props who's got an eye for the goal line. And this try was no different. He looked to be kind of going to be just short, but managed to put the hand out and force the ball down. So it was a good try, Papier, with the pass, even if they insisted on calling him Papier in the commentary from what I've seen, but it is Papier. 13-7, that was the score, and that's the way it finished. Glasgow did go kind of 14 phases trying to close the game out in Sale's half towards the end, but Sale managed to get a turnover. And then Sale went on the attack down the other end, but eventually did knock the ball on. So nothing doing for them. But again, losing bonus points, so they'll take a bit of solace in the fact that they managed to earn one of those. Match stats were pretty even. Run meters were 255 to 254, so it doesn't get much closer than that. Although Glasgow had more possession, more territory. Sale tackled at 89%, which was pretty impressive, but Glasgow pretty equal to the job, 88%. Sale having to make a fair few more, 159 to Glasgow's 125. But yeah, I mean, all these match stats are pretty close. Position and territory, like I said, leaning towards Glasgow's side, but I guess that speaks to the tightness of this game. One thing that struck me was that Glasgow's lineout was 100%, but Sale's was 53. Or is that 55? Either way, not very good. So that seems to be one area that was pretty costly for Sale in this one. Actually, Greg was the top tackler for Glasgow with 15 out of 17. Daniel Dupree had 18 out of 19. So a game where defenses kind of ruled the way with a couple of magic moments. But yeah, Glasgow got a tough job. Away to Exeter next. And Sale have got to go to France to play La Rochelle. But yeah, they'll be looking to pick up some points either way. Actually, they're not in France. They're home to La Rochelle. Of course, you never play away in this competition. You always go one versus the other. So La Rochelle will be travelling to Sale to play that one. So that one becomes a very important fixture because you can't be dropping too many points early. The next one was Leinster up against Benetton, and this one on paper was supposed to be the game that really blew out. Benetton weren't given much of a chance at all, but 33-19 is a pretty respectable scoreline, I would say, from Benetton's point of view. They still managed to score 3 times, although, I mean, Ringrose himself managed to get 3 tries, so a good hat-trick from him. Plus Kelleher and Sexton also went over for tries. So no penalties kicked in this one. It was all tries and conversions, which I guess is nice to see. Again, I've seen the highlights. Ringrose got on the board early. Yeah, he's just that man for kind of going through a gap, isn't he? But then, believe it or not, Benetton actually took the lead with a try through Bud. They went through some phases, and he was pretty close to the line, managed to power over, 7 points to 5. Ringrose went over for his second on just around the quarter of an hour mark. And, yeah, he just reached out to put it over the line. He's another guy who's, like I mentioned with Oosthuizen, got an eye for the goal line. So, Yep, 12 points to 7, Leicester's favour, and then Quaglio for Benetton got a yellow card. I think Benetton had been conceding a lot of penalties, so it was a combination of a bit of like a high tackle and then the overall team thing for conceding too many. So during that time, Keller went over for his try, I think, after about 8 phases, so the defence couldn't hold, and they made it 19-7. 7-0 during the yellow card. Benetton missed a penalty during the yellow card, but I guess to keep Leinster to only 7 points during the yellow card period is pretty decent. That's how it went in at half-time. Sexton scored his try not long after half-time. He had a nice little line break, passed it to Van der Fleer. Van der Fleer probably could have gone over, but he gave it back to Sexton. 26-7. But Benetton got their try through Fiver. Nice little line-out move. They had advantage. The maul was collapsed, so Fiver managed to get the ball out and go over for the try, 26-14. Ringrose got his hat-trick on 67. I think they said it was his first ever career hat-trick for Leinster, so that's awesome stuff for him. He just kind of slipped it in, man. He just goes through the gap. He goes through. There's not many players have got that skill, but he's got it in abundance. 32-14. And then Benetton right before full time out on the left wing. 33-19, the final try from Spiradio. 79 minutes for that one. So, bonus point win for Leinster. What can you say? They did what was expected. They managed to get the bonus point against a team not favoured to do much. Benetton maybe could have gone for a fourth try, but I mean they scored their last one so late that wasn't really going to happen. But they did have their own chances, but Leinster's defence was pretty solid, 89% with their tackling percentage. 83 for Benetton is not too bad in its own right, but they still shipped a fair few tries. Run meters 479, 244 kind of tells the story in terms of where the attack was at. But possession and territory relatively even. Turnovers conceded for Benetton 12, Leinster 5. Line out, Leinster 100%, Benetton 73. So just kind of key areas that Leinster are just too good. Although, to be fair, they conceded 12 penalties to Benetton 7. So if there's one area that they would like to, I guess, tidy up on a bit, it would be that. Leinster are away to Lyon in the next game. So I think, was it their second game last Champions Cup against Toulouse where they dropped a game. So Lyon are not Toulouse, but they'll be looking to still go in and do a job. Leinster and Benetton are at home to Northampton. So based on that performance, there's probably better hope than the bookies gave them a chance for at 0.2%. But that was always going to be a tough one up against Leinster. The next game with La Rochelle up against Exeter. Interesting uniform, that Exeter one. I've seen the purple uniforms before, but is that a new one this year? As Exeter were kind of playing better, the uniform was growing on me. I didn't really like it at first, but the more I saw them play well, the more I started to like the uniform. Go figure. But 31 points to 12. I think this game was predicted to be a fair bit closer than it ended up being, but a bonus point win for Exeter, so they couldn't ask for much more. I mean, I was kind of saying in the build-up to the Champions Cup that I hope Exeter can kind of be that team that they are in the Premiership in the Champions Cup, and if that's anything to go by, that's a pretty nice start. So it was tries to Dennis O'Flaherty, Slade, and Sam Simmons. For La Rochelle, it was Dumaru and Murimu Livalu, but both in the second half. So the first one was early from Exeter. They went through a bunch of phases. Dave Dennis from about 1 metre out, powered over 7-zip. La Rochelle did have a try chalked off on about 15 minutes. There was a forward pass in the build-up to it. I think they won a penalty at the breakdown, took it quickly, and tried to go in, but there was a forward pass, so no try. 33 minutes, O'Flaherty gets his try, and that's it's not a try that you necessarily think Exeter when you think that try. I mean, again, I'm not any expert on the Premiership by any means, but when I think Exeter, I think kind of like the Dave Dennis try or a Maul try or something. I'm not necessarily thinking big looping pass, nice little step, really slick moves, and the commentators were kind of saying they want to see more of that. So they've certainly got the skills for it for sure. So yeah, really good try, 14 zip. And 37 minutes just before halftime, Ihai West, my former Blues man, who from the highlights didn't seem to have a stellar game, at least with the boot. He missed a fairly easy penalty, which would have at least put La Rochelle on the board, but that's how it went at half-time. However, they did start the second half a bit better than La Rochelle. Dumour got his try early on in the second half. There was a cross kick and a great little bit of back and forward passing, so they missed the conversion, but at least they're on the board, 14 points to 5. But then, as they're, I guess, trying to come back into it, Slade has a great read on one of the passes from La Rochelle. It wasn't West this time, I did double check. He went in straight into the sticks, 21 points to 5. And then Sam Simmons on 63 minutes. What power from that guy. He just bulldozed his way to the line, and that made it 28 points to 5. They kicked the scrum penalty. They got a penalty at the scrum, and they kicked the penalty to Exeter right towards the end. They already got the bonus point to make it 31-5, but then La Rochelle right on full time cross kick, and Murimulivalo managed to get the pass from that. So a bit of a consolation try, 12 points they finished with. So yeah, you look at the stats. Actually, La Rochelle had more run meters, 472 to 340, but possession and territory both with Exeter. Turnovers conceded, again, a kind of key stat. 17 for La Rochelle, only 11 for Exeter. So that's kind of one of the areas where the game's won and lost. Tackling percentage, interestingly, La Rochelle are at 91, and yet they still ship that many points. I guess with tries like Dennis's and Simmons' ones, there's just kind of no stopping them sometimes. And Slade's, they didn't have to make any tackles because he was just in the clear. So it's not like anybody missed a tackle in the lead up to that one. But yeah, it seemed like a good crowd. Bonus point win. Goal kicking for Exeter was 100%. For La Rochelle, it was 38, which is a bit disappointing. Rates for La Rochelle had 100 run meters, 8 defenders beaten and 3 clean breaks, which is a phenomenal effort. Hill for Exeter had 619 tackles, which is again very busy. So I think if you're an Exeter fan, you got to be pretty happy with that. You can't get any more points than that. That's a away win in France, so definitely take it. La Rochelle hadn't been beaten at home until this result this season, so top stuff. La Rochelle, their next game is up against Sale, away for them in England, and Exeter will host Glasgow, so should be an interesting one there. Now, 17 minutes into the video, finally the games that I've actually seen in full. I did have to kind of dual watch them, which means I didn't pay as much attention as I would have liked, but I still got to see, I think, pretty much the main points of both games. Clermont Harlequins, that was an entertaining game. That was a lot of fun watching that game. 53 points to 21. Now, it doesn't have the tension of some of these games where it is kind of, right until the death. But there were some real good moments. I suggest you go find the highlights for this one if you haven't seen it, because a couple of those Fijian guys for Clermont were just absolutely amazing. They started with a penalty, 3-zip, and their scrum was looking good. Raka got his try, their first one, after Quins, they dropped the ball after a line-out, and he kicked it and picked it up, made it 10-0. And Raka and Yato were just the key guys for Clermont in this one. Interestingly, Young went off for Quins early, and then one of the other guys went off as well, but I think Young came back on. But it seemed like Harlequins unfortunately had some injury woes kind of earlier, or at least head checks. Yato had a hell of a try after Raka got onto a Lopez cross kick, and he passed it to Yato, and somehow he managed to get it down. Made it 15-0. There was a big hit on Lopez at one point. The ref was kind of having a look to see if it was late, but they said it was nothing more than just a penalty. Yato got his second try on 25 minutes. He had just some gas. He beat about 3 defenders. made it 22-0. So it was starting to look a bit bad for Harlequins at that point. But at that point, they did manage to score. Lorde got the try in 29 minutes. They had some quick ball. He went through the gap, made it a bit more respectable, 22-7. But then there was a head clash. Fisher had to go off. He had blood. He was out cold at one point. And then 38 minutes, Yato looked to have got another try, but it was denied as there was a knock-on in the build-up. So, it was kind of all on in that game. Half-time, it was like 59% possession to Clermont. The penalties conceded was 3 to Clermont, 8 to Quins. So, it was pretty tough. Interestingly, at half-time, Quins had missed 14 tackles, and Yato and Raka had beaten 9 defenders. So that's the lion's share of all those missed tackles from Quins. It's just those two guys. Second half starts well for Clermont with Toiava getting a try, Raka again in the build-up, 32-7. There's a maul try for Quins, which makes things again a bit more respectable on 51 minutes. 32-14, but then Raka gets another try. There's a cross kick and like a no-look pass, 39-14. Moala gets a try from a Lopez chip. It's a good bounce, and he kind of uses the post to block the defender, I guess. It's just the defenders on the other side of the post that can't make a tackle. 46-14. Lang does get another one for Quins. They never stop fighting, which I guess is, if you're a Quins fan, is at least one thing, even if you've been kind of well beaten, that they kept going. 72 minutes. It was, really good build-up. Lang was just the guy who finished it off, but it was a great build-up in the try. 46-21. But then Clermont finished with the final try. It was a more one from a line-out, so 53-21 is how it finished. So bonus point win. Quins maybe could have pushed for a fourth try bonus point, but it wasn't to be. They shipped too many points, but at least they proved they can score. I guess, if nothing else, away in France is not going to be an easy one. So, final stats, run meters 604 to 296. That's kind of double. Tackling percentages, both teams were 84, but 84, you still ship 53 points. Penalties conceded 11 to 12, so relatively high in this game. Yato finished with like 128 run meters, sorry. And Evans had 16 out of 17 tackles, so there were still standouts in both teams. But man, there were just so many entertaining tries in this game. Definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it. But yeah, Quins don't get anything out of that game. Man, for Clermont, it's a great start to their pool with a big bonus point win, basically. They've got Ulster next away to Clermont, and as I said, Harlequins will host Bath. So that Harlequins-Bath match, given both the results, becomes a pretty important one for both those sides, so that could be quite interesting next time. Final game, Ospreys and Munster. I watched this one as well alongside the previous game. Munster were predicted to walk this one in, I think, fairly easily. And I guess they did it 32 points to 13, but it wasn't an easy job for them. They definitely had to really fight for this win. Ospreys didn't just kind of lie over and concede 32 points. It took right until beyond the 80-minute mark for Munster to finally get that fourth try, but they kept pushing for it, because in this pool, which is a really tough one, with Racing and Saracens in there as well, every point is going to be vital, and I guess Munster were in no doubt about that. They wanted to push for that final try. 13 points to 32. The stats make for interesting reading, especially halftime. Interestingly, Ospreys got the game started with a penalty 3-zip. Munster were looking dangerous early because they had like an overlap at one point, but one of the passes I think went to Earls' feet, so he knocked it on. But it wasn't his fault, it was more the pass. They ended up kicking a penalty to make it 3-3. And then exchanging penalties, Munster go in front 6-3, Ospreys bring it back 6-6. Eventually, though, Lockman gets the first try on 34 minutes, and they have to go through the phases. They really have to work for it. They did check for a knock-on but there wasn't one, and that made it 13 points to 6. You could feel as that first half was going on, Munster were just getting more and more in control of the game. But if you read the halftime stats, run meters is the one that I was looking at. Like, Munster had 73% possession, 78% territory, 190 run meters. Ospreys had 32. I don't know that I've ever seen a game that low at halftime for one team. 32 run meters. Munster's tackling was at 94%, but they only had to make 33 tackles. I think it said like Ospreys had like 33, or was it 32 run meters from like 33 runs. So going a meter at a time. Ospreys themselves, though, were tackling at 92%, 126 tackles in one half. Is phenomenal. I guess that was what was keeping the scoreline down, was that defence. Second half, though, Munster score a quick-fire double through their wingers Earls and Conway. Earls is one. They had advantage, and he just went over basically, 18 points to 6. And Conway's one was just a matter of him really putting the hammer down. I know he's gassy. Doesn't sound like a good word. I know he had some gas, had some pace, but it's like he just put it into one extra gear because he was running alongside the defender and then just left him. Just left him. And Conway has been in, as much as I've seen him this year, he's just always been in good form. He seems to be the form Irish winger at the moment. So that was from a bit of turnover ball. So 25 points to 6. 77 minutes, Ella Davis got a try for Ospreys, though, after a long period in the Munster 22. Made it 13 points to 25. But then the bonus point try came for Munster. They were down their own end like a few minutes before the full-time hooter would have gone. And then they just worked their way down. They got a maul from a line-out and went over for the try. That one was Cronin. So, 32 points to 13. Important bonus point win, as I said, in what's going to be a really tough pool. So, job done. Job done for Munster. Run meters ended up 198 to 445. So you can tell Ospreys really came into it a lot better in that second half. Possession ended up 55% Munster, 54% territory. So again, in the Munster's favour. But if you look at the second half, Ospreys were more than 60% for both. So that's how it kind of almost evened up. Munster's tackling percent, though, remained in the 90s. 93% is just a fantastic effort. It doesn't get a lot better. 121 tackles. Ospreys made 183. Their percentage dropped to 88, which is still very respectable, and which is what kept, I guess, Munster having to fight right until the end to finally score that final try. So, penalties conceded were 15 to Munster, 9 to Ospreys. So I guess, like Leinster, if there's one area of concern, it was conceding too many penalties, which was allowing Ospreys to move their way up the field at times. Line out for Ospreys 78%, Munster 100. So set piece for the Irish team seems pretty solid. Conway had 80 run meters and 4 defenders beaten. As I said, the guy's in proper form. Lydiot had 23 out of 26 tackles, which is a fine effort on any day. But even a losing effort, you say he would put in a pretty good shift. So, those were the games for this Sunday here in New Zealand. But some proper entertainment. I really enjoyed watching the tries from that one. I watched these two, the highlights, without knowing the results, so there was some really good tension in those ones as well. But you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. Oh, did I mention that Ospreys have to play Saracens next? Away. Doesn't get any easier. And Munster will host Racing 92. So, big games for both of those teams. But you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. How do you think these teams are going to go? And I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.